Hey everybody, how are you? Welcome to the Pure Motivation Podcast Show. I'm your host, Coach Dimitri, and as always, on this podcast, we're talking about the 5 M's to high-performing males. We're talking about mindset, mission, muscle, macros, and your marriage. Today, we're joined by a very special guest, one of our own members, Dr. Saman Razzaghi. Welcome to the show. We're going to be focusing on men's health after 40. We're going to be talking about what's important, what you should pay attention to, and why you got to make the decision to take care of your health right now. Hope you enjoy this episode. And again, we want you to like, subscribe, and leave any comments. Check you out in a bit. All right, brother. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
I've been dying to get you on board because not only are you my favorite doctor, he's a buff, fit guy that trains 4 or 5 times a week, but he's a role model to what doctors should look like and perform like, right? So give us a little background before we dive in here about your background, either in exercise, fitness, if you were ever involved in any sports, and then what led you to want to become a doctor and to helping people out.
Yes. In terms of fitness, I've been involved in sports for most of my life, all my life really. Since we were kids, my father was big on us being in sports like martial arts.
Yes.
So we did a lot of that, me and my brother. And as we got into teenage years, we started picking up the weights and started doing weightlifting. As you're 15, 16 as a guy,
trying to look good. You want those chest and biceps to be pumped up,
right? So, and then and that kind of I really enjoyed it. And once you start educating yourself on how it's important, especially both physical strength training and aerobic exercise, and I just continued as I got older, and here we are today. So
nice.
Yeah.
So not only has this guy crushed it, but how much did you weigh when you first met us, bro?
I think it was around 175.
176, and today?
197.
197. So the guy's gained a good 20 pounds of solid weight, and percentage only went up by maybe 2-3%, especially when you're trying to put muscle on. But that's an amazing accomplishment, not only for someone that is just training regularly, but for someone who's got a demanding career like a doctor. We know that your days are long. It's difficult to balance both things, but you still manage to do it.
Yes, and I think it's important that you can't make excuses. Everybody is busy. Everyone has a job. I'm sure. I'm not a parent, but being a parent, that adds on to it. But you have to really take time out of the day to just go at least an hour. 30 minutes to an hour exercise. It really helps you. And I think if it means waking up early, so be it. That's what you got to do. Or you got to come in later after work. That's what you got to do. It's just about motivation and getting into the gym and just doing something active. And that's what I challenge my patients too. It's hard for them, and a lot of them that are that when I see them with chronic pain, they don't have much of a history of exercise in their in their background. Most of them haven't, or they think because they have a physically demanding job that's exercise, and and which is not true, because if you're doing a physically demanding job and you're lifting things inappropriately and you're hurting yourself, that's not really helping your body.
Repetitive stress syndrome.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how you end up with chronic injuries, chronic pain, and they haven't seen me.
So tell me about your background. What made you want to become a doctor? What type of practice you specialize in?
Yeah, honestly, I want to be a doctor. I think since I was a kid. I think in high school it really solidified when I started learning about human physiology and
anatomy,
biology.
baby.
Yeah, I really loved it, and I'm like, this is it for me. I knew I was going to do medicine. I did sometimes thought about pharmacy, dentistry, but I just had no interest in that. This was what I wanted to do. I want to help people and educate them, help them, make them better. So that's.
And how long have you been in full practice?
I've been practicing on my own since 2015. So
wow,
yeah,
good time.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you moved from family to more pain management.
Yes, initially I was a family physician or general practitioner, and it just I just felt I needed to do something else to help. Yeah, and I wasn't having that career satisfaction. I feel like I needed to do something else,
make more impact, man.
Yeah, so I got into chronic pain, and and then it was just one of those things I really enjoyed watching the transformation of patients' lives. Because when they're having chronic pain, it's not just the pain; it's the physical. It's both also the mental aspect,
right?
The depression, the agitation, the way the way of life. So
and then that trickles on to their family, man.
Oh yeah. And it's interesting because when they come with their families, they tell me, Doc, thank you. She's so much better. Thank you. She's so much better. He's so much better. Their relationships improve. It's that's what I'd like to see. not just them getting better physically.
It's not aesthetic, but it's compounding to the lifestyle.
Yes. And it's like that. So that's, I really get a lot of satisfaction seeing that,
100%. So let's talk about pain management first. A lot of you mentioned that you people that do repetitive work, and when I speak to a lot of guys that are in the trades, sometimes they're like, "Oh, well, I work out all day and I don't need to go to the gym."
Yes.
But using a sledgehammer in one position over and over, or being a drywaller and constantly working above the head and getting tight in the shoulders, or being a tiler on your knees all day, or being in the corporate office just sitting down at a desk all day, that's going to wear down your body.
100%.
So when those people come in and they see you and they just say, "You know what, can you give me some medication?" What is your route? Like, how do you help them out? Because I already know if I come to your practice, I'm going to look at you and be like, "This guy's buff, he's fit."
Yes.
If this guy's your doctor, you're going to pay attention to him, right? But what is your process? Because I know that you mentioned to me before, there's always the medical style of advice you have to give. Because you are so involved in training, you said that you kind of blend that into your practice.
Exactly. So, obviously the foundations of anything in terms of for physical health is, your physical activity and making sure you get out there movement. When I say, if people don't understand, like if they stop moving, it's when the things go wrong, especially as you get older, after the age of 40, 50, 60, as you go, like you get tighter, everything gets more, it's harder to move, okay? So if you stayed active and being physically active from a young age, or even if you're in your 30s and you haven't started, just start and then prevent that, because as you get older, your joints get more tighter, all the degeneration, all that in your back, it affects you. So.
And then you mentioned the stress built up because that piles up, and then they're coming
100%.
to you just wanting medication. And a lot of, I have nothing against doctors out there, but I think sometimes doctors don't work out. I know my doctor's retired now, but he hated seeing me because every time I would go, I would try to pinch his belly and be like, "Come on, doc." And he's like, "Oh, it's you again, the percent the body fat guy." And he didn't like it. He loved me, but he didn't like it because I kept going to him and I kept being reality, saying, "Listen, man, you got to come to the gym and start training." So it's nice that you have that background. Let's dive into now. Some of my notes are talking about the issues that men face, like the health issues after 40. From your experience, what type of issues do you commonly see occurring with men over 40, and how do these issues, how is it negatively affecting them?
Okay. The biggest thing, again, is their lifestyles, the sedentary lifestyles, and again, they're getting more abdominal, obesity or fat.
Visceral tissue. For those of you who don't know how important it is, body fat is bad for you in general, but when it's sitting right in the gut, it's building, correct me if I'm wrong, around the intestines, the liver, all the organs.
Yes, the visceral fat, that's the internal fat that you don't see. Yes.
So that's underneath. So if I had to cut my stomach right now and open up in my guts, you'd see, I don't have, but you can see for someone who has a belly, yellow tissue, adipose tissue, that's all around the organs.
Correct.
Okay?
Yes.
So then if someone is like, "Okay, well, I go to my doctor, he said my blood pressure's okay, and I'm all right," but you're looking at the guy and he's got abdominal obesity.
Yes.
What's going on inside his body?
So when you have abdominal obesity, we know that's correlated to many things, right? That's correlated to glucose intolerance, which means, there's things about steps of diabetes. If you're having glucose intolerance, we know that if you lose weight and use abdominal fat, that's going to help reduce that glucose intolerance and prevent you from getting diabetes.
100%.
Right? Again, cardiovascular risk increases as your abdominal fat increases. So
and when he's talking about cardiovascular risk, guys, people use that term. I think people use the term so vaguely, like, "Oh, I'm going to cut my cardiovascular risk zone." Think of your heart, think of arteries, and just think of plaque building up in there, and you can't have proper blood flow. So when you constrict that, and if I squeeze my wrist a little lower, that pressure builds up. That's high blood pressure. High resting heart rate, we're sitting down here talking, I'm looking at my watch, I'm at 68 beats per minute, okay? 68 is nice and relaxed. Where sometimes I meet people that are 80, 90 beats per minute.
Yeah.
So that really affects them internally, and is a dangerous thing.
Right.
In terms of patterns, are there any patterns that you see guys coming in with that, you said it's lifestyle, but is there anything that assists them to get to that place?
I think it's more, again, time and, again, what their history is, in terms of if they were physically active as a kid. And I've seen from my experience, people who don't, since they're a kid, like even they're teenagers, they don't start exercising, they don't form those good habits. And when you don't have those good habits, As you get older, it gets harder. As we know, when we're kids, we're teenagers, we don't have much to worry about.
It's easy,
right?
we have time, man.
We have time, we sort of have a school, hanging out with friends, nothing much. But as you get older, responsibility, jobs, career, family, right? So these things compound, and then now you can't do anything, right?
Got it.
And if you haven't had those good habits, it's going to be harder as you get older to start working out. Doesn't mean you won't be able to, but it's just going to be harder. So it's better to start as young as possible, get those good habits. So as you get older, as your life gets more complicated and more time consuming, it just needs to make time for it still.
Yeah? Got it. So let's talk about, again, some internal things. What I see when the people come in, I see high blood pressure, I see high resting heart rate. So the one that's the secret one is, they don't really bring this up unless I probe. They talk about fatty liver.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not.
So that's, when you talk about fatty liver, the initial stages, which is very mild fatty liver, another name for this is called metabolic dysfunction associated steatotic liver disease.
Ooh,
okay?
It's a long Greek last name.
Yeah. So again, these are all, again, goes back to the all those risk factors talking about, obesity, high blood pressure, so things like that. Those it increases the risk of fatty liver. Okay, so you have increased fatty tissue around your belly.
Yep.
That correlates with fatty liver as well.
And you can have, I think it's two types of fatty liver. One is through an alcoholic based, and a non-alcoholic based.
Correct. That long name I just said, the metabolic dysfunction associated steatotic liver disease.
Oh my God, the guy still remembers it after school.
Or it used to be called non-alcoholic fatty liver.
Okay.
That one is basically, yes, associated with the metabolic risk factors. Then you have the alcoholic.
So that'd be like, for anyone watching, that's like, they're not moving enough, they're eating too much glucose,
stuff like that.
Spiking blood sugar, the body's storing it away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then you have the fatty liver with the alcohol associated. Again, that's from drinking. Okay, too much drinking, and then this fatty liver, if it's not controlled or dealt with, it can progress to what is basically hepatitis. What we call steatohepatitis, which is basically a fatty, inflamed liver. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and that anything with chronic inflammation leads to scarring.
Scarring
is cirrhosis. Basically, and then you end up with cirrhosis.
Is there two stages of it?
Well, in terms of stages, it goes. That's how it progresses, and there's different levels of cirrhosis, obviously, which, it's just more complicated. It's not really viewers don't need to know that, but it's just more about. It's when you get cirrhosis, that's where you have scarring, and now you're killing off the liver.
So the actual liver gets scarred. Like when I think of scar, I think of cutting tissue and then it heals scar tissue.
Yes. So if you do a cross section of a liver, you'll see that. First of all, the liver gets very, almost like a bunch of bumps on it, okay? Very bumpy. It'll get harder, okay? Like, cigars showing your skin in some areas, if you notice it, it's harder. So if you can almost palpate it through your abdomen if people who have cirrhotic livers. And because it initially gets inflamed, it's large, so you can palpate it, and then as it gets cirrhotic, it's much harder, okay?
Wow.
So that's the thing, and then obviously when that reaches to that point, your functionality has decreased or to the point, and it can get to the point where it's failing. When you have end-stage liver disease, that's a big problem.
So someone that has a fatty liver, I guess the first basics things to do would be exercise.
Yes.
Cut down carbohydrate.
Right.
Cut back on alcohol.
Exactly. They recommend, if you have a fatty liver, especially at the beginning, to lose about 5 to 7% of your body weight.
Wow.
Okay. And they say about a rate of 1 to 2 pounds or kilos, I believe, a week. Okay. So they said if you do that, that helps reduce the fatty liver.
Right. Can someone get a liver transplant?
Sure, but good luck being on the list.
Right.
I mean, it's based on urgency, and if, for instance, if you're
need a match, right?
Absolutely, you're going to be a match. It depends where you're on the list. And and most people don't survive.
And the liver is a big organ.
It's a big organ. It's one. They're all necessary, but especially the liver. You know what I mean? So most people who get to that point, this chance to survive is pretty low.
So let me reiterate, because you're a doctor. People that have abdominal obesity, which I know from measuring men and women all my life, I think it's 35 inches for a female, 40 inches for a male. If you have a wide midsection, chances are you got some stuff going on in your organs.
Yes, well, at least you got like you said, the visceral body fat is much higher, especially like that.
Yeah. Then we can look at insulin resistance, which is something so important. Where I tell people, like, if you're a bit overweight and you're a type 2 diabetic watching this, you should thank Lord, because as a type 2 diabetic, you're able to reverse that. Your body, you can drop weight, become more active, you can get the pancreas working, so it can produce insulin and not overproduce it. And for those of you who don't know, type 1 diabetes, the pancreas either isn't producing enough insulin to pick up the glucose from inside the blood cells and say, hey, we're gonna do this. Do you wanna take it in terms of, it goes muscle, liver, fat. And the problem is when people aren't exercising enough, the body picks up glucose and it goes, hey, muscle, do you want it? The muscle's like, I'm packed, I don't need no more. And then the body goes, well, where can we put it? Liver goes, I can take onto it. So that's why, as he spoke about the fatty liver, when you're eating too much glucose, the liver gets that second portion. Once your liver, correct me if I'm wrong, is too overloaded and it's storing in its glycogen, then it goes to fat stores.
Correct.
And if you continuously live this cycle of overeating, not exercising, it's gonna go muscle, skip, liver, overloaded, fat, and then your body kind of gets into the process of thinking, okay, man, you know what? You're eating every day. You want to be fatter. You want to gain weight. I'm just going to help this process faster for you. And then when your body isn't producing enough insulin, that's where you go type 2. All that glucose sits in your bloodstream, and that's dangerous. Whereas a type 1 diabetic, they have an autoimmune issue. They can't produce insulin. They have to inject themselves with insulin. So if anyone watching right now, it bugs me when someone goes, oh, I'm type 2, and they're not paying attention to it. Because you can reverse that, you can change that. And type 2 diabetes is almost, in my eyes, I don't want to say it in a negative way, but it's like an overweight luxury disease where it can be curable. It's you're not moving, you're not eating too much. Yes, I know that there's cultures and hereditary factors.
Correct.
So if I had a mother and dad who were overweight, I know African American, Hispanic, I believe, some backgrounds, some Indian backgrounds I've read, and that's also due to cultural foods. They're high carbohydrate foods, high fatty foods that can lead to it. But insulin resistance is super important, right? So now let's lead into metabolic syndrome. So for all the guys watching there, they're probably like, okay, these two dudes are buff, they work out, they have the time, they have the energy. I recall metabolic syndrome being one, and I've seen this and I've put it on many different episodes of podcasts. It is the biggest killer in North America above suicide, alcohol, depression, car accidents, and it's a cluster. It used to be 4, but now I believe you can have 3 of them, and it's insulin resistance. So you're eating too much, you're not exercising, your body's not producing enough insulin to pick up the glucose and provide it somewhere. It's abdominal obesity, like we spoke about. It is high cholesterol or high triglycerides, and then high blood pressure.
Correct.
So all 4 of those, a man and obviously a woman can have too, right?
Correct.
So here we are, 40-year-old, 50-year-old, 60-year-olds walking around the planet containing this metabolic syndrome. They're in a boundary line. What are the complications after that? Is it death? Is it what is it?
Well, I mean, yes, like you said, it can lead to cardiovascular disease. It's highly associated with that risk, increasing the risk of heart attack, obviously, because the sclerotic plaques, if you have more fat sitting in your bloodstream, the more it's being deposited into
it can block areas that need blood and oxygen.
Exactly. So that's the big thing, and obviously diabetes, right? You get, because again, you give insulin resistance.
There could be eye issues, amputation.
And that's from the diabetes itself. Yes, you get all those diabetes associated problems. But in terms of, it's one of those things. This metabolic syndrome is easily curable, or at least reduce to your risk as much as possible. Like obviously it's genetic factors. Some people are more genetically predisposed to having more body weight or more fat content, or they have a hard time to lose weight. But you have to do whatever you can to help reduce your risk factors, right? So then the cornerstone of treatment is exercise and lifestyle changes, exercise and diet.
See, I love that this guy's saying that because he actually practices it and preaches it, whereas so many bloody doctors out there, I love you guys, but you're doing it all wrong. All you're doing is giving someone blood pressure medication. My mom, she's 76. She wasn't as active 6 years ago. And I said to her, listen, I want to see you live long. I want you to see my kids' kids. I said, you got to start training. And she was against it. I'm not against it, but I'm old, I'm da-da-da. And I said, you're not going to see the kids then. I'm going to hold back on them. And I almost like kind of blackmailed her in a way where I'm like, listen, you want to see the kids this weekend? No, come to the gym. And after 3 weeks of me just saying, listen, I really want you to come and work out, she finally got into it, started training, and it's become a lifestyle. And now at 76, she's a beast. She can kettlebell deadlift, she can lift heavy weights and all. But her doctor, a few weeks back, when they mentioned that her cholesterol was going a little bit higher, right away the guy's like, we got medication for that. If her blood pressure was high, we got medication for that. So why is it that in the medical world, medication is the first thing that they do?
And again, it shouldn't be, we always, like, it depends on your risk. It depends if they're associating like how high the blood pressure is, how high the cholesterol is. And this, when they do these, there's algorithms or where we look at in terms of, okay, based on the calculation risk, is this, do they, there's protocol, should we add medicine or should we just do lifestyle changes and then come back in 3 months, see how you're doing, and then
I remember watching a podcast with doctors talking, and they said, listen, realistically speaking, we need to look at a time factor. We need to look at average stats, population.
Exactly.
If we have 1,000 people who are overweight, metabolic syndrome, and their risk factors are leading to slow death, we either tell them, go exercise, eat healthy, which is, it's a gamble. They may not be able to do it. Or take this medication tomorrow. And it's going to work right away. It's going to lower these markers. And I think maybe that's the reason why the medical society has that as a starting point.
And I think the problem is as well, like, when it's more about it on one-to-one basis with education is different. Like, I would always kind of have a discussion with my patients, say, this is the situation, this is the risk factors, these are the options we have, right? And I always say, obviously, if I was you, I would start with diet, exercise. Dedicate yourself, be compliant with the regimen. Come back in 3 months. Let's see if it's continued to go down. Then we don't do anything. We continue. But most people, like you said, unfortunately, there are people who are not as motivated.
Right.
And then instead of keep letting them,
it's tough.
Deteriorate, right? And then we have to say, okay,
you can't keep seeing the same guy every month who's going higher.
And the risk factor goes, and then and there's like, well, didn't you just give you the medicine? So we have to. That's why you have this discussion with your patients, and we have to try to do the best we can for them. And sometimes, it's therapy, giving them the medicine, because we see that it's not trending the right direction. And we know you have to give yourself a timeline where, okay, when should we say enough is enough and start the medicine, because we don't want this guy's risk factor for heart attack.
If the guy's a heart attack and they're like, you saw this guy 5 times in the last 6 months, why did you prescribe it? No, I get it.
You know what I mean? So you have to do what's best for the patient. Obviously, sometimes it is medicine. They just need it. But that's where it's at.
All right, I got that. So we talked about being overweight. We talked about heart conditions. We talked about fatty liver. I know all the guys watching right now are going to be like, bro, talk about testosterone. So let's talk about testosterone, because it's a really, really big topic. I'm 46. I've been training for the past 29 years. I feel right now I'm at probably one of my best states. I'm the heaviest. I'm the leanest. I'm still active. I can run track, and I can do a 100-meter dash in 13.53 seconds. Do men need testosterone? And have you ever had people come to you saying, hey man, can you give me a little prescription?
When I was doing general practitioner, yes, you get a lot of that. And it's honestly, they found, studies show that the biggest reason is all the advertisement that's out there about
TRT,
take
TRT.
this, yes, take the testosterone.
Dana White, lost weight.
And that's been the leading cause of why most men go after it and want to use it. They want to get big, but they don't think about all the potential risks. So in medicine, there is a place for testosterone replacement therapy.
But when does that happen?
So usually it's people, when they do testing, their testosterone level is low. They have physical symptoms, if it's decreased libido, or in terms of loss of muscle mass and increased fat, increase of body fat, bone mineral density is low, stuff like that. Okay.
Is it safe to say, can we categorize and say if someone is obese, the testosterone is low, or can it be that they have normal testosterone, they got high body fat?
Yeah, that's all it could be. It could be just body fat. And I feel like you can't blame everything. That's another thing. Like, there's a lot of people have vague symptoms of, I just have low energy, of fatigue, and this, and I can't get up. I need to get testosterone. I'm like, that's not true, because, and they've even done studies where those vague symptoms, with people with vague symptoms and normal testosterone, if you do testosterone therapy, it won't help. Right. So it has to show like you have low testosterone levels, on the testing.
What would be like average or low ranges? Is there like a specific range?
The range, again, at the top of my head, I don't know them because we always end up looking at the numbers.
Changing.
Yeah, it's like we always, I just refer to the references that we have. But in terms of if it's within the range, it's fine. And it's not just that. It's again, their symptoms plus that. Okay?
Lifestyle too.
And again, lifestyle. And so what people all wants to go and get big. And there's a lot of negative adverse effects with this. I mean, people who take it just to gain muscle mass and get big, they don't realize it affects obviously, it shuts down the whole loop system of the hormone in your body. Because
I remember then their estrogen level can rise and the body doesn't produce as much testosterone.
Because, you're part of exogenous testosterone in your system, your brain's like, enough. So it tells your testes no more, okay? And over time, if you have that, your testes will just stop making it, okay? And that's what leads to this, we have a reduction in testicular size,
right?
And also spermatogenesis, which is increasing making sperm,
right?
So I think there's a misconception that testosterone will increase your sperm. It does not. Right. Actually, using
all the guys that got high sex drive, I'm ready to go all night.
Yeah. So actually, the testosterone, exogenous testosterone will actually reduce your spermatogenesis, so you have less sperm.
Okay, if we're talking about testosterone, there's different ways to take it. I know that there's intramuscular needle.
Mm-hmm. There's gels.
There's gels?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. That's the first line to use gels because it has a pretty good, easily applied, and it absorbs pretty well.
I guess for the older population that doesn't want to go into needles and stuff.
Yeah, and it's always the first line is the gels.
And then there's also pills you can take.
Pills, yes.
But they got to go through your liver and make separations there.
Exactly. So the biggest one that we use is really the gels, and then the IM. With intramuscular.
Got intramuscular. And okay, so for anyone watching, I'm not a proponent to be a bad talker about it. If you're an athlete, if you're an actor, if you broke your femur, I know some fighters, Conor McGregor broke his tibula and fibula, and he needs to take some stuff. He probably took some extra GH and stuff, but I guess I'm okay. I understand you have a profession that would require it.
Yeah.
If I was a football player and I'm getting paid millions of dollars, hey, no problem, let's go. But for the average guy, I always tell them, like when they say to me, should I go on TRT? I'm like, brother, if you don't even know what your basic weight training program design is like, if you don't have a macronutrient breakdown for your body type is like, if you don't even know what body comping means and measuring your body fat percentage, why the hell are you skipping 5 steps taking testosterone?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't know what's working.
I agree. And people always want a fast, easy way of, making muscle, looking good, and without putting in the work. So
I remember when I was competing and it was very difficult because as a natural drug-free bodybuilder, I never had the size that these guys had. As an ectomorphic guy trying to gain weight, it was difficult. I always had to do side shots to show my obliques. I could never do front-on shots. And then I noticed that it's addictive. It's a very addictive drug because obviously, think about it. It gives you more energy, more water retention, more power, more recovery time, and it works, right? Testosterone does work if it's done properly, eat properly, but you still got to work hard, even harder.
Absolutely.
And you got to keep it up.
Absolutely.
And that's where I think the danger kicks in.
Absolutely. And all the danger becomes the risk factor we talked about, like in terms of also cardiovascular, I'm sure you've seen a lot of those with bodybuilders.
Yeah, they're dying
at young age.
Young, and 30s, 40s. Yeah. Arnold had a massive, I think 2 surgeries already.
And that's what that testosterone can cause that. And it's related with cardiovascular risk factors.
I always tell people, listen, what's natural, hit some creatine,
Yeah.
I've been doing that for many, many years, over 3 months on, a month off, and that'll help out. If you're stuck, you should really pay attention to your nutrition and your training.
Agreed.
Is the first and foremost. Agreed. And like we mentioned in the previous podcast is get professional help. Like people go see a doctor because they got a problem and they can't figure it out on their own. So then if you don't know how to lose weight or build muscle, why the hell would you try to do it on your own?
Yeah.
It's like painting a wall, or it's like making a certain recipe. If you don't know how to cook properly, you got to get a recipe booklet to teach you. So why would you try to do it on your own?
Yeah.
You go get someone to help you out with. Anything in terms of any type of, do you ever see issues with growth hormone in your practice?
No, in my practice, no, because I'm more based on chronic pain and focused.
So I know it's a big thing now. A lot of people are getting growth hormone therapy.
Yes.
Even young, like in their 20s and 30s, man.
Yeah, I know. I know a lot of them using it because, again, the same kind of responses they would with testosterone, and they think it's safe, but, people understand, like, when you think that's new, or if they've been using it for a little while, we're not going to know the results or risks until a decade later, until it's like, oh, these are the problems,
Right, because you're injecting something foreign that's, I think it's what the most important thing is for viewers to understand is you're changing the body's natural homeostatic state.
Exactly.
It's like me taking a home and removing the HVAC and the electrical and putting something brand new, and it's not the same. It's not natural.
Exactly. So when you mess around with the homeostasis, something's going to go wrong, right? So like I said, your body starts compensating in a different way, right? So this is what we talked about the testosterone. Like if you start putting testosterone in your system, your brain tells you your testosterone to shut it down. It's not going to make anymore. And that's when it leads to problems, because then if you stop the testosterone, now your body has none. And then has that, that withdrawal.
So what do you, when someone comes in and they're like consistently not listening to you, can you as a doctor, can you fire a patient? Like if they're not listening to you, you say, listen, I've helped you 4 or 5 times. I'm going to give you like a last write-up. If you don't pay attention to me, I'm not going to see you no more. Is that a no? Is that possible? Or?
I mean, if there is something wrong in terms of maybe they're not on the same page, they're competitive, or like they just not want to listen to what you have to say, you can, in terms of tell them, listen, it's not working. Maybe you need to find someone else that can help you. Or if you are a GP, obviously what you do, if you don't listen to you send them to a specialist, see if they can help them.
Right.
You do whatever you can for them. And then end of the day, I mean, you try to do what's best for the patient. So that's what you have to keep in mind. And most of the time, doctors firing patients, it has to be something pretty severe.
Right.
But even if they're not listening,
trying to harm themselves, then you got to put them to a professional.
Well, yeah, if it's for harming themselves, you got to give them the help. But it's more like, if they're combative or just rude, or in terms of they've done something that's inappropriate. But in terms of helping them, you do all you can. You just have to make sure, even if they're not listening, you keep telling them, hey, do this, continue doing this, and you hope that they eventually will listen to you.
Gotcha. And then in terms of, I know that statistics say that after 30 years old, you lose 1 to 2% of testosterone per year. For a male. I know for a female, you lose a pound of lean mass muscle tissue after 30, 35. For a man, it's half a pound of muscle tissue. Are there any other things that break down or like get worse with age? Because I don't want to scare people watching, but I really want to poke them and be like, yo, man, pay attention to this shit.
Yeah, and it's the metabolism. After 30,
metabolic rate slows down.
So like, you can't eat the way you're eating in your 20s. Right. You'll notice, like, as you're getting older, like, I used to eat like this, and I could have late night snacks. That would happen. And if you look at the people in their 20s, they look like they're always in shit, because they could do nothing and they'll be in shit.
Right. You got 25 years, 4 years to that.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Then, as soon as you hit 30 or close to your 30s, things start to, slow down. And if you continue the way you are, you're gonna see the results.
So hormonal changes occur after 40. Metabolic rate declines after 40. Lean muscle mass declines after 40. And it's not because you're getting old. I want you to remember it's because you're not active and lifting and pushing and pulling, and the skeletal system needs that.
Exactly. So if you're not doing something
functionally,
exactly. So your body's saying, okay, it's getting older, yes, but you could do things to give it that signal. Hey, we're still here.
Reproduce, start working.
Keep active and keep the muscle mass up and reduce the body fat. Those are all possible, as you can see. Like you said, you're in your 40s and you still look great, and you're up. You're below body fat, so it's doable. It's just that if you let it be and not do anything, yes, it'll just continue going that direction. And
then lastly, I'll talk about the last thing that a lot of guys always talk to me about is fasting and intermittent fasting. I'm gonna be blunt on this. When I first was speaking to members about it, I kind of was a little bit negative, and it was only because I don't like easy ways out. Like I don't like it when guys are like, oh, I'm just gonna start skipping breakfast and wait till lunch, then pound a big lunch, then spike my blood sugar with a coffee and a donut, and then for dinner a chicken salad. I'm against that because I want human beings to be active. I want them to move and be strong. But I do notice that if you're telling someone that's overweight they cut their food at 8 and they're gonna skip their breakfast and they give that body some time to metabolize their fat, it is helpful.
Yes.
When would you say you do not want to recommend fasting for somebody?
I mean, I think it depends. Again, it's every person
one-to-one basis,
and it's just based on how where they are in their fitness level, where they are in terms of their fat percentage. Because like you said, it does help. Obviously, it's not a great long-term solution, but I think it's helpful to, if you want to come from down the stage, from like if you're like a certain amount of weight and you want to come down quickly and be able to maintain it, but maintenance is the biggest problem.
Right.
So
maintenance, because you can't fast your whole life.
So you have to work out and have a lifestyle change while you do that. So that kind of like maybe initiates it. So then you continue working out, making good choices diet-wise, and then you see the weight loss continue.
Sure. I like that. Well, in terms of fasting, I know there's massive benefits to increased growth hormone, cell repairing, recycling, the autophagy, which is great. Is it safe for people to fast for 24 hours once a week? Like, have you done any research? Have you heard about it? Because I kind of wake up now, and because I got to train at 6:30 now, and I love waking up, getting up early. I used to smash a big breakfast, like a cup and a half of rice, chicken breast. I'm older now. This is my muscle mass. I own this, so I don't need to eat like I used to. So I can go fast and work out and have a wicked workout. But is it good? Because some people are doing like 24-hour fast twice a week, and to me, that's a little bit nerve-wracking.
To me, I don't know much about that. I don't recommend that. I mean, I think 12-hour intermittent fasting is fine, because you're still eating.
Right.
But 24 hours, I don't see if that helps and how that works, how that would help you.
Because I think it's another way that they're just cutting. I'm going to cut food for a day and then see if I'm going to lose weight. But again, during that day of loss of eating, if you're an active, fit person like us, we're going to maintain our macronutrients the next day. We're going to have the same protein the next day. But if that 24-hour period you got no food, the next day your macros are off, the next day they're shot up high, I think you're stressing the body.
100%. And I think, again, then you get catabolic and then you're going to, lose muscle mass too. So I don't think that's great, especially if you're working out and you have a low body fat.
Right.
Yeah.
So don't really need it as much.
Yeah. So that's what I wouldn't do that. I think it's great too if you want to do it for like it's an intermittent fasting for, let's say a few months, 2 months, 3 months, to kind of bring down your body fat and continue to exercise. And to your point, in terms of fasting and exercising, I myself in the mornings when I exercise, I don't eat before I exercise because I feel like
you own the muscle too now. It's another big thing. You own it versus when you're starting. When I was first starting trying to gain weight from 155 to 196, there's no way I could have did that. Lastly, I want to touch on cortisol, because so many guys out there are thinking they can just get away with being high stressed. And to me, if you're high stressed, I'm high stressed, obviously. A lot of times just making content like this stresses me out, because I signed up to be a coach and a gym owner, and my job wasn't to have to be a content creator. Now in my 40s, I'm having to research and write this and videographer, so it's a lot more added stress. But a lot of guys think they can just wing it. High stress, high blood pressure, demanding lifestyles, abdominal obesity, cortisol production, I've heard and I've read is produce inflammation in the gut. But is there any other issues that it can do in terms of muscle wasting or breakdown in terms of high cortisol?
Well, as the cortisol level goes up, right? That's where the belly fat starts to increase too. So you get and the cortisol goes up with stress, lack of sleep. So as when you're not sleeping, our cortisol level goes up. So if you're like past midnight and you're still up, you actually get hungry because the cortisol level goes up and you get hungry.
Right.
Cortisol
and cravings.
Yes, those cravings. So that's why then you just keep perpetuating the situation, right? So that's why cortisol is affected by all those stress, physical stress, emotional stress, and just lack of sleep. So you have to do things. Those are, and again, it's going to affect your cardiovascular health again.
Yeah, your heart, your blood pressure. So it just keeps like it's a nasty cycle, man.
It's a cycle. So you have to avoid that. There's good sleep, eating right. So reducing stress. We all have stress.
Mindset. You got to have some kind of grounding, meditation, reading.
You got to reduce as much as possible. But we know life that's sometimes not possible. That's fine. But you got to reduce your risk as much as possible.
Awesome. Well, bro, it was amazing. I must
Yes.
say it was great. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for sharing your background. And again, hats off to you, bro. When you're pumped up in your training, and I look at you and I'm like, this is a role model of what a doctor should be like, not just now, but forever. For those of you watching at home, I hope you got a lot of nuggets today. I'm hoping you can really look at this episode and say, you know what? He's speaking to me right now. I have some of these things. I got high blood pressure. I got stress. I got a tummy that's too big. I got markers on my body that are bugging me. You can make a change. You can change your lifestyle. You can change everything that's negative about you, but you got to take one step forward.
Exactly.
You got to take that one step forward. You got to make that one phone call. You got to Google the person you want to reach out to. You got to call the coach. You got to go to the gym. You got to set that strategy call. And if not, you're going to live a life of poor performance. And in my eyes, when you're in your 40s, man, you got kids. You got a family. You have a profession. This guy's got patients that look up to him. You got to be a role model for the people there. So hope you enjoyed this episode. If you live in the Vaughan area and you want to come to this beautiful facility and you need help and you want to have Dr. Saman flex his biceps when he's training here to give you some motivation, click the link below. We're happy to give you guys a complimentary trial. And if you're someone that's just stuck, you don't live in the city of Vaughan, you're in the US, anywhere in the planet, and you need help, I'm happy to help you out with an online coaching program that's going to give you coaching, it's going to give you accountability, it's going to give you nutritional guidance, it's going to give you a mobile app that you can log all the information in parts of your day, and most importantly, it's going to have that person there to help keep you posted and help keep you motivated. That's it for today. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and remember, average is the enemy, attitude is everything, and you can change your lifestyle in an instant.